Hello, nerds! Nerds for Yang. This is a new type of video. This is a Nerds for Yang Reacts. I was getting some people asking me about, well, what do you think about this whole Tim Black thing? And I was like, for a while, I was like, I don't know who he is. Don't know. People kept asking. So then I checked out some of Tim's videos, and on the one hand, they were super, I find the guy super interesting and charismatic and entertaining, passionate. But when it comes to this whole Medicare for all thing, he and I just disagree. And so I figured what I do is just share some of my thoughts. And then I'll do at the very end of this video, if you're interested, I'll do a little bit of a split screen reaction type thing. I don't know how that's going to go, but so that's why we're going to do it at the end. In the meantime, let's first go into the details. And I actually made some slides for this discussion. It is a Nerds for Yang channel. All right, so let's take a look. What is all of this Medicare for all controversy about? What I was able to summarize is there are generally three things that are really bees in some people's bonnets. The first one is that there's a view that Yang is appropriating the Medicare for all label, but isn't supporting Sanders' Medicare for All Act of 2019. So basically the argument is, hey, he's using the term Medicare for all, but he isn't supporting the act, the bill as written by Sanders, and presumably as supported by Warren. And so if he's not going to support that type of implementation of Medicare for all, then he shouldn't use that term. He should call it something else. So the second argument is that because Yang's Medicare for all plan does not call for the immediate dissolution of private health insurance, that it isn't disruptive enough. And then the third is that, when the Yang gang pushes back on these criticisms, it's just full of bots and kind of brainwashed zealots. So let's go into each of them. Is Yang appropriating the term Medicare for all? Well, the first thing I would say is that this whole Medicare for all term really isn't accurate. If the ground truth is Bernie's bill, then I think if you surveyed most Americans and you said, hey, Medicare for all, do you think that means that if you get employer health insurance today, that you will lose it and you will have no choice but to go on Medicare? I think a lot of people would be like, whoa, no, I didn't realize that. I thought it just meant anyone could get it if they wanted it. The reason why I believe that is today, Medicare is not mandatory. So if you're over 65, you can get it if you want it. If you don't want it, you're welcome to have private health insurance. That would not be possible under Bernie's bill. So Bernie's bill is really about single payer, meaning all of the healthcare providers, medical device companies, pharmaceuticals companies, they all get paid by one entity, which is the US government. And that's not how Medicare works today. So, we could argue about who owns the term Medicare for all, but I'm just saying it's kind of a misleading term if ground truth is Bernie's bill. If you wanted a really accurate, honest term, what you should call it is mandatory Medicare, because that's what it is, right? You're not allowed to have private insurance anymore. You can get private insurance for anything that is not covered by Medicare, but if Medicare does cover, basic primary and some experts and specialists, then you can't get private insurance that will cover you and provide for that stuff. You can only get it for stuff that's not covered under Medicare. So mandatory Medicare, single payer, Medicare for everyone without alternatives, no more employer-based insurance, government healthcare for all, Medicare only. The appeal of Medicare for all is that it does sound a bit like an empty vessel, and that I think most people would think it means that, oh, anybody who wants Medicare can get it the same way any retired person today who wants Medicare can get it. So that's number one, that this term that we're trying to fight over is kind of a very ambiguous term and an inaccurate term, depending on, I would argue it's Yang's plan is a more accurate plan if you want to call something Medicare for all. Bernie and Warren's plan really should be called mandatory Medicare or Medicare for everyone. Yeah, I don't know. But it's a kind of a fuzzy term to begin with. Point two is that isn't what we're all after the trying to get everybody covered and also to have enough of a buying position such that a larger Medicare program has the ability to negotiate prices with healthcare suppliers. I think that's really what we're after, like whether or not happens to be private health insurance coexisting with a public option. I mean, that just seems like not the most important thing. I do respect people who say, hey, you need so much power in the hands of the single payer that you're just not going to get that with the public option. Or maybe you say, well, all the healthy people will be on the private plans and then the unhealthy people will be on the public plans. Yeah, I could get all those arguments. So I'm not saying it's a no-brainer that you wouldn't want single payer. I am saying there's probably a path to get there. And when we're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar industry, overnight, kicking 150 million people off their private healthcare is probably not a very smart thing to do, just from an execution point of view. My last point is that, Medicare for all isn't really Bernie's name. Back in 2006, it was used by Kennedy, the Medicare for All Act of 2006. And that was not single payer. That was public option. So if you really want to be a stickler on what Medicare for all means, then you could argue that Bernie's stealing it from the public option version, which was Kennedy's version, and closer to Yang's version. At the end of the day, call it what you want or have more clarity in the description. Maybe no one should call their plan Medicare for all. Why are people so fired up over this term? I mean, aren't we all trying to do the same thing, which is reduce costs, increase coverage? And if Yang and even Buttigieg is in favor of a stronger public option, isn't that like a revolutionary step? I mean, which takes me to the second point, which is, Yang's Medicare for all plan is not disruptive enough. Let's be clear, having a public option is something that Obama was unable to get done, even as a very popular president coming in and using almost all of his political capital for the ACA. So if Yang got it passed, he would have done something Obama couldn't do, and he would have grown a program that is almost $1 trillion a year quite significantly. That's a pretty big bargaining chip when it comes to negotiating with the healthcare providers. Just even enabling Medicare to negotiate drug prices would be freaking massive. So I wouldn't dismiss the Yang Medicare for all plan. The second thing is it's less disruptive than Bernie and Warren's plan, but at some point being disruptive can turn into being chaotic and causing unintended consequences. And there's 150 million Americans today who are on private health insurance and who would lose it under the Sanders and Warren plans. Out of those 150 million, let's just assume 100 million are registered voters. You really want to try and win the general and tell them that they're going to lose their health insurance? I don't know who's going to be excited about that. Let's be honest. In the general, Trump is going to say, if we go with the Bernie Warren style Medicare for all, he's going to say, these socialists are trying to take away your insurance. They're going to force you on government health care. It's going to be completely inefficient. There's going to be long waiting lists, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be like the Soviet Union, yada, yada, yada. And I get that that's there's a lot of BS in those accusations. But if you've watched focus groups with swing voters like in rural Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, Florida, I don't know that they're going to be anxious to lose any private insurance if they have it. And if they don't have it, I don't know that they're going to fall in love with the idea of government run healthcare. Because, I mean, look at even the healthcare that we provide to veterans. It's not fantastic. And so having that for everybody, I don't know. It's not a winning general election strategy, in my opinion. In fact, there have been surveys of Americans about this, about Medicare for all. So here is some research from September of this year. And what you see is that 47% of Americans are opposed to single payer. You'll see that 47% of Americans are opposed to getting a plan where everybody gets their insurance from a single government plan. And that opposition is actually higher now than it was in 2017 when only 38% were opposed. So the Bernie style Medicare for all plan has less support now than it has 2 or 3 years ago. Republicans strongly oppose it. 6 in 10 Republicans strongly oppose it, while 4 in 10 Democrats strongly favor it. So if you want to activate the Republican base to turn out and vote for Donald Trump, you should propose a single government plan, Medicare for all. Okay, the next criticism is that the Yang Gang is full of bots and UBI zealots. Oh, all these Twitter people don't have pictures. Look, Yang raised 10 million in the third quarter in federal election committee filings. He had the highest dollar growth from second quarter to third quarter, second only to Bernie himself. So he had a larger dollar increase than Warren or Buttigieg. Buttigieg actually went down. And we're shooting for 30 million this quarter. So this notion that, the Yang Gang's not real, it's a bunch of bots, it's real. And unless you're going to make the assertion that all of this money is coming from bots. Now, speaking of bots, let me show you something. This is a company that does social media analytics, Spark Toro, and they do audits of people's followers. And Yang almost has 1 million followers as we're recording this. But in fairness, 23% are potentially fake. So you might argue, whoa, that's kind of concerning. Accounts with similar size following to Yang have actually a median of 32% fake followers. And if you look at Bernie, remember this number, 23% fake for Yang. How many fake followers does Bernie have? Well, he has 39.7% fake followers, 3.9 million fake followers. These are accounts that are unreachable. You will not see the account's tweets because they're spam, bots, propaganda. They're inactive. You can see here a good chunk are lower quality. So the notion that Yang is somehow has the most fake followers is a load of crap in percentages and absolute terms. Now, Elizabeth Warren, she has 36.7% fake, 1.2 million. So Yang has the most authentic following on Twitter compared to Warren and Sanders. Should we look at Mayor Pete? Let's see. Mayor Pete, let's see his. He has 28%. Yeah, so more fake percentage than Yang, who again has 23. And then the other argument is that, we're just a bunch of UBI zealots. I mean, the thing about UBI is that it trusts people and it tries to treat everybody equally. And the federal jobs guarantee involves, again, the government. and the federal government determining what people should do. So, yeah, I believe certainly that UBI is a more elegant, efficient, powerful policy. The other argument I've heard is like, oh, you want to give money to the UBI to millionaires. Here's the deal. If you want to get this thing passed, you need to avoid having it be framed as a wealth transfer from rich individuals to poor individuals. Because if you do have it framed that way, it will not get passed and it will not serve the general election candidate well. Now, here's the good news. Let's just look at the numbers here. Let me show you something. Here is a chart of US income distribution in 2018. Even if you just look at people earning $200,000 and more, that's only 8.5% of the population. So if you're worried about 8 out of every 100 people getting the freedom dividend, here's the question. Do you get so pissed that those 8 out of 100 people are getting the dividend that you don't want the other 92 to receive their dividend? Because I'll tell you what, if you say that the freedom dividend is just for people who earn $200K and less, you will not get support. You will not get donors. You will not get any Republicans, any libertarians. No one will get it. So this argument that, oh, Yang's policy is terrible because we're giving $1,000 checks to Jeff Bezos, that's a load of baloney, because the Jeff Bezoses of the world are so few and far between, it doesn't matter. They're not going to represent more than a few percent of the total freedom dividend budget. So why are we worried about whether they get it or not if it helps us get it passed? Right? It's just crazy. So that, in summary, is my response to the Medicare for All brouhaha. Number one, that term is way too generous for what Warren and Bernie are proposing, because they're proposing a national healthcare plan, a single payer plan, mandatory Medicare, elimination of all private insurance. They didn't invent the term. Ted Kennedy used it in his act, Medicare for All Act of 2006, which was a public option, did not eliminate private healthcare. So you could argue Yang's plan is actually more representative of the real Medicare for All plan. And number three, like, come on, like, we're all trying to do the same thing, man. Like, what's the big deal? He wants to, I mean, if he introduces the public option and a strong one, it's going to be a huge freaking deal for the country. So, like, give the guy some slack. Secondly, this notion that it's not disruptive enough when he's going to be doing something that Obama couldn't do, when he's going to be increasing the Medicare program to be a over $1 trillion program. Like, that's plenty ambitious enough, in my opinion. And then thirdly, this notion that the Yang Gang is full of bots and, you know, zealots is also inaccurate. When you look at the data, Bernie has more fake followers as a percentage and in absolute terms, and Yang actually has the most authentic following out there compared to Warren and Buttigieg and Bernie. And he's raised 10 million last quarter, and we're going for 30 million this quarter, and bots don't give money, right? These are all FEC registered official donations. Hopefully we can all agree that we all don't want Trump to be reelected. And that's probably the thing that gets me the most about this Medicare for All stuff. Like, I get the ambition and I get the end game and I get the ideals, but we're not going to get there if we lose to Trump in the general. And we did last time. And one of the few things that can activate the Trump base is arguments about socialism. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, well, isn't the UBI going to be labeled as socialism? It might be, but every Trump voter, if UBI is passed, will get $1,000 a month. Every Trump voter, if Bernie-style Medicare or Warren-style Medicare for all is passed, is going to lose their private health insurance. Which one do you think they're going to vote for? Which one are they more likely to be open to? Okay, so with that said, now we're going to do a little experiment, and I'm going to do a quick sort of side-by-side reaction to Tim's video. All right, let's do it. Let us see what our man Tim Black is up to.
Skirmish. Yeah, a little bit of a skirmish online. The Yang Gangers, who I refer to as the Yang Bangers. Yeah, the Yang Bangers, they've been banging on my door for the last, 24 hours.
All right, by the way, I have to speed up the playback. This is not his normal velocity of talking. I have it at 1.5 just so we can get through this. And I would say, Tim, man, like calling the Yang Gang the Yang Bangers, I don't know if that's if you're upset that the Yang Gang is giving you grief, I'm not sure that calling them Yang Bangers is the way to kind of go high.
Whatever did you do to offend the Yang Gang, Tim Black? Well, I disagree with him, Johnson. That's what I did. I disagree with him. I saw it another way. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. You can't disagree with the Yang Gang. Well,
I think it's fine if you disagree with the Yang Gang. I just think we should disagree on the merits. And personally, I think your proposal or your candidate's proposal, I presume you're supporting Bernie, will lose us the White House.
yes, you can. I want you guys to know, when I was at Politicon, I had no idea there was so many Yang supporters. Folks, I'm trying to tell you, like, I knew there was a lot of Yang supporters, but I didn't know. You feel what I'm saying? I didn't know. Thousands of people with the, I'd say 90% of them with less than 500 followers, with accounts that are brand new, most without pictures.
Now, I don't know where you got that 90% number. We just showed data that 77% of Yang's Twitter following is authentic, which is the highest percentage of Bernie, Warren, and Buttigieg. So I think you might be exaggerating.
Came at a brother because I disagree with them about something about Andrew Yang that I have every right to disagree about. I didn't talk about his wife. I didn't talk about his kids. I didn't talk about his bowl haircut. I didn't talk about the weird hat. I didn't talk about anything out of bounds.
Wait, but you just did. You know, like, you're mad at these people, so whoever they are in the Yang Gang, for getting emotional with you. And you just kind of spoke dismissively about Andrew's haircut, his wife, his kids. I know you said I didn't talk about those things, but, you know, we both know that you just did. Which is fine. It's YouTube. It's fine. You're being colorful, but I don't know. You can't really get on a high horse if you're talking like this about the other guy.
I had an issue with something that's related to policy. And they still came for a brother, to the point where I was like, Johnson, well, damn, Johnson, maybe the Yang Gang got a lot of bots. I mean, it couldn't be a disagreement on policy gets me indulged in a swarm of thousands of young people. That's not out of bounds. It's relevant. That's what you would do. Like, that's what we do.
Okay, that's what you do. And the Yang Gang has a right to express their opinion too. So there are a lot of people in the Yang Gang. I would argue that's a good thing. So the fact that you got a lot of attention from a lot of the Yang Gang, thousands of people, well, turns out there's millions of people that are in the Yang Gang.
I call out Kamala Harris. I call out Cory Booker. I call out Elizabeth Warren. I call out Pete Buttigieg. I call out Joe Biden. But the Yang Gang, on policy, not on his health, not on his looks, not on anything, no cheap shots.
Why do you keep talking about his looks, dude? Leave it alone. That's what he looks like, an Asian dude. It's just what he looks like.
It was just about his policy or lack of policy and his ethics on those policies that he had on his website. I get attacked by thousands of young people. So to me, guys, like, Lee, look, I'm thinking.
All right, man. You get attacked. So your argument is you disagree about Medicare for all. A lot of people disagree with you. And now you feel like you're being attacked. Now, let's be fair. I haven't seen the tweets that people said to you. So maybe thousands of them were using inappropriate language and harassing you and attacking you and violating Twitter guidelines or whatever. More likely, I think they just disagreed with you. And I think they thought that you overstepped the line, Bob, probably because of your accusations that Yang is, quote unquote, stealing Bernie's Medicare for all term, which was used in 2006 by Kennedy and was just a public option, not single payer.
There's no way there'd be that many people who don't even know me attacking me for voicing an opinion about a clip that's on CNN that the whole world can see. All these people don't have time to go after one guy when everyone saw this clip. The whole world saw it. I don't have a secret stash. The clip is public knowledge. Anybody can comment on this clip. Why is it that I'm getting a special treatment?
Tim, I think it's a compliment that you're getting special treatment because I have to admit, as I'm watching this, you are super captivating and I love your style. And I look forward to the general election when we're on the same side. But you're getting special treatment because you got a lot of flair. You have a good amount of sarcasm. And you're on Twitter and you have a YouTube channel with like 100,000 subscribers. Like, you're not a nobody. You look at this like beautiful set you have. You don't have this like IKEA furniture behind you. You got like a green screen and animated stuff. You're kind of a big deal. You're on the Hill. So you're a public figure as far as this primary is concerned.
So this is where we are. Let me share with you the clip that got your brother Tim Black. They tried to run me on Twitter, but you know me, I ain't going nowhere.
Dude. There's no way anybody's going to run you off Twitter or anybody wanted to. Dude, I hope you stay on Twitter. I hope you stay everywhere. You're awesome. I just disagree with you on this Medicare for all thing.
I don't scare easy.
No, you don't.
This is the clip that they tried to run me off of Twitter for commenting on. Here it is.
By the way, that's a super cool wolf.
Told reporters in New Hampshire last week that you think, quote, outlawing private insurance in a very short period of time is a bit too disruptive, and I would not do it. So how do you support Medicare for all and not outlaw private insurance?
Well, there's a way to provide Medicare for all that does not prohibit private insurance. And the goal has to be to demonstrate to the American people that this Medicare plan is superior to your current insurance without pulling the rug out from under you and saying that the insurance no longer exists.
Bernie Sanders.
That sounds like a very reasonable position and one that will do very well in the general election.
Campaign manager said about your stance on this. Come on, you either take on corporate greed that rots the system or you don't. That you're calling this Medicare for all, but when you ask about the substance, you still want to keep private insurance, which is not Medicare for all. How do you respond?
It's funny because we had an internal debate about this. Like, what does Medicare for all mean? If you look at it, what does it say? Medicare for all, which means that you have a Medicare program that everyone can be enrolled in.
So you're adopting the label, but not the bill.
That's correct.
Yeah. So basically, he's for Medicare as an option for everybody. He is not for Bernie's bill. But I don't think Medicare for all, I don't even know if Warren agrees with every line of Bernie's bill. Bernie's bill is Bernie's bill. Let Bernie's bill be Bernie's bill. Call it what you want. Bernie's version of Medicare for all. I'm not going to use the first name Care or last name Care because I think that's kind of disparaging to whoever's name is associated with it. But you know, Bernie didn't invent healthcare reform. A lot of people have been talking about it for decades. And he wasn't the first to use the term Medicare for all either.
Is that a little disingenuous to people looking for that, that flavor of a Democratic candidate, but if they don't know the substance of your plan?
Well, we're clear about the substance of our plan in various places, and we're going to have a more detailed rollout of the full plan in the days to come.
All right, Tim, come back. There you are. It's such a cool animation, by the way.
Yeah, I got in trouble for commenting about this clip. And I can't say get in trouble. I was harassed. I was harassed, Johnson. Look at me. I'm scarred for life. I don't know how I'm going to proceed. I don't know if I can deal with it.
Dude, you love it. You know it.
Oh, yeah. I need my mommy because I'm a little snowflake. Out of here. So first of all, let's unpack this clip a little bit here, Yang Gang, because we wouldn't be, ashamed, or we wouldn't have a problem with a little bit of criticism for somebody who's an honest actor who has
Bring it on, baby.
reported positively about your candidate in the past. Make sure that mic's turned up.
Oh, it's turned up. It's turned up, baby.
What do you mean you don't want to be disruptive? You don't want to be disruptive to the system? That's the only purpose for having you run, is that we have a system that's jacked up. We need disruptors who want to come in and change it disruptively, not tentatively. Oh, you mind if I move this pen over here? Well, let's think about it. Okay, tell me when you're ready.
Well, hold on now. Yang is proposing a robust public option that will allow the government to negotiate prices with healthcare providers. That is not, let me move this pen over here. That is something that Obama was unable to do. So I know you're about to do a exaggerated version of what you, I guess, believe is incremental change. But remember, we don't have a public option today for everybody, even though Obama tried with all of his political capital. It was the thing that he spent his whole mandate on, and then was completely gutted by Trump. So to bring ACA back to where it was and then add on the public option is not moving the pen or what you're about to describe.
We're going to have a meeting to discuss the moving of the pen. Everyone have a seat. That guy, Andrew Yang, wants to move the pen. Do we think that's feasible? Well, I don't know. We've had that pen there for about 20 minutes. It's been fine where it is. Why does he need to move the pen? Precisely, Johnson. See, we don't want that type of garbage. We got that type of garbage now. We already got that guy. We don't need another guy pretending to be.
Are you saying that Andrew Yang is like Donald Trump? I think, Tim, your argument here is pretty weak, that a strong public option with government ability to negotiate prices with healthcare providers is what we have today. Because what we have today is a president who's purposely trying to undermine affordable access to healthcare.
Be a disruptor. Coming in and talking about, hey, I don't want to disrupt, I don't want to disrupt anything. I wouldn't want to disrupt, the shit.
By the way, you are calling Andrew Yang afraid of disruption when he's proposing a universal basic income for every adult over 18? Come on, Tim. I feel like this is a little much.
That's, 500 million people, 500,000 people going bankrupt every year. We don't want to disrupt that because they can't pay their, because they can become ill and they can develop a condition and bankrupts the hell out of them. We don't want to disrupt that. We don't want to disrupt all the seniors who cut their medications in half because they can't afford to pay full pop. And we don't want to disrupt the.
Those examples, those people would have the ability to participate in Medicare under the Yang proposal. So I don't see why you're saying having Medicare available to all does not help the seniors and the person who's having difficulty making their rent. By the way, both the senior and the person having difficulty making their rent would have an extra $12,000 to $24,000 a year if they're single or married.
50 million of people that are underinsured with inadequate insurance, and we don't want to disrupt all the people who are still uninsured even after Obamacare, because that would not be civilized.
No, nobody's saying that. Those people would have the ability to get Medicare coverage. That's not saying we don't want to disrupt. That's saying we want to offer a solution. What you're saying is that you want everybody to get off 150 million people to lose their private insurance overnight, and everybody to be on the same government plan, and you want to win the general election.
Where I come from, Andrew Yang and Yang Gangers and gang bangers, if you're not willing to disrupt the system, that, my friend, is uncivilized.
Again, you're accusing Yang of not being willing to disrupt the system. This is a guy who came from the private sector and then founded a national nonprofit and is running for president on UBI. This is the most disruptive guy in the whole damn race. You could make this argument about other candidates in the Democratic field. You could argue Buttigieg and Biden might be more incrementalist. You cannot make that argument about Yang.
Status quo is uncivilized. And why do you guys want to support someone who's not willing to take on the system? That's the whole point. Oh, I get it. You think you get $1,000 and system stay jacked up. Let the
No, we're saying we're going to get our $1,000 and offer Medicare as an option for anyone who needs it.
system stays jacked up. I got $1,000. Do you know how quickly the $1,000 goes away if this shit system stays the same? First of all, it does nothing to close the racial wealth gap, which I know I'm sure all you young gang people are very concerned about. All the black people struggling on the bottom. I'm sure you can't sleep.
Whoa. Hold on a second. Okay, 48% of young black children under the age of 6 live in poverty. That compares to 14.5% of white children. The poverty line is $12,000 a year. So for those young black children that have a parent that is an adult over the age of 18, and as those children turn 18, that will be an extra $12,000 a year to those families. So I'm not sure why you're saying this wouldn't be beneficial to African Americans.
Sleep at night for all the blacks who for every dollar a white family has only has about a dime. I'm sure you can barely contain yourself on Twitter. You are right now somewhere with a blade next to your vein going, I'm gonna kill myself because all these black people are so struggling, even though they've been in this country longer than I have and helped build the country for free. They were free to starve to death because they were given no land, no food, and told go build a life. If you didn't have a job, they locked you up. And then 100 years of Jim Crow. We've only had civil rights in this country for 50 years. You don't care though. You're fine with rich people, a rich family that makes $1 million.
Well, hold on a second. If the Yang Gang is in favor of a universal basic income that will disproportionately help people who are in poverty, which will disproportionately help African American people in poverty, I'm struggling to understand why you think Yang supporters don't care. I could argue more will be done for the African American community through UBI than a federal jobs guarantee and a single payer healthcare system. Because under Yang, they would have access to Medicare if they wanted it and a universal basic income. So that's a pretty big step forward, in my opinion. And now you're going to make the argument that we're going to give it to all these millionaires. And we went over the numbers that only 8.5% of Americans make over $200,000 a year, and probably only a few percent make over $1 million a year. So again, yes, we're going to give the freedom dividend to those 8 out of 100 who make $200K or more a year. And that's the way we pass it, so that we could give $1,000 a month to the other 92 out of 100 who make less than $200K a year. If we want to pass it in the Congress and in the Senate, we cannot have UBI framed as a wealth transfer from individual rich people to poor people. We can pass it if we organize it around the principle of a value-added tax on the richest industries to everyone.
A year, getting $2,000, a husband and wife, and a single mom getting $1,000 and having to get rid of food stamps and the public housing and all that other shit. You're fine with that. That makes sense to you.
Yeah, because that single mother would only do it if she chose to. Now, if all of the other federal programs that were similar to cash transfers were giving her more value, she doesn't have to give it up. But most likely she will choose the cash because that's a more efficient way for her to spend it on what she and her family needs the most. The fact that Jeff Bezos gets $1,000 a month, are we going to cut off our nose to spite our face? Like, oh, well, we don't want Bezos to get it, so we're just going to position it so it'll never get passed.
And I got a question about what you guys are really about. That's all I'm saying. But let's keep it moving because
we're about a trickle-up economy. We're about capitalism that doesn't start at zero. We're about helping the country transitioned through a very disruptive industrial revolution, and you're fixated on the terminology Medicare for all. That's what we're about.
That's just one of the things about this clip that's horrendous. There's more, Johnson.
And who is Johnson?
One of the things I can't stand is the laugh. Yeah, when Dana Bash said, hey, well, it doesn't sound like what it sounds like you don't support Medicare at all for all. Sounds like you support something else, like a public option plan. What? No, yeah, me and my friends was just talking about how full of shit. I mean, when you guys gonna start catching on, I'm full of shit. I was just surprised. I was wondering, we were just talking about that. Were we talking about that, Michael? Yeah, we were talking about it. What about you, Story? Yeah, we were talking about it, Andrew.
Again, okay, a couple of things. One, you need to watch more Andrew Yang interviews. That dude laughs about everything. Secondly, I think he's laughing because it's a little odd that everybody thinks Bernie Sanders has trademarked the term Medicare for all. He wasn't the first one to write an act called Medicare for all. He won't be the last. And if you want to be really literal, are you telling me that if you have a plan where anybody who wants Medicare can get it and has access to it is not Medicare for all?
Eventually, somebody's going to say, hey, sounds like you want a public option, not a Medicare for all. Yeah, you know, I don't like that laugh when Kamala Harris does it. She does it too. I called it out when Kamala Harris does that laugh, that nervous, rickety, giddy, fake laugh when someone is caught, when they don't know what to say.
Well, hold on. This is where you and I agree. I'm not a fan of Kamala Harris's laughs, but I think that's a different type of laugh than Yang's laugh. Yang's laugh is more like, oh, isn't this crazy how there's the Medicare for all police, and if your plan isn't exactly like Bernie's, it's considered not Medicare for all. Harris's laughs are different. I won't go into that. Maybe you and I agree.
But I guess when I call out Yang for it, it's like, oh my God, it's travesty. It's disgusting that you would call that out. Oh, here come the millennials coming over the hill with a bag of wet.
I'm not sure where you're going there, Tim. Obviously, I'm not a millennial. I'm not a bot. I don't have a problem with you disagreeing. Like, you're for single payer. That's cool, man. I respect that. Medicare for all does not equal single payer. Medicare for all, in my opinion, means Medicare available to everyone. But available doesn't mean compulsory, which is what you're proposing.
Spit out used sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds. Here we go, guys. And all that is cool and all that is real, and yeah, that's a problem. But one of the biggest complaints I have about this is that people are still pretending that you could have a public option be front and center in your plan and it still be called Medicare for all, when the two versions of Medicare for all, one in the House and one in the Senate, both explicitly say no duplicative care for the public, for private insurers.
So here's the thing. Do you think all the Bernie and Warren supporters really understand that? I don't think they do. I don't think they know that they're giving up their private health insurance. That insurance that their employer gives them that has been giving them coverage. I'm not saying they love it, but there's a difference between being frustrated with the bureaucracy of, whatever, Aetna or Blue Cross, and saying, yeah, you're going to give that up and you're going on the government plan, whether you like it or not. I respect that you are clearly for single payer and you definitely do not want private health insurance, but I think you might be overplaying that hand with most Americans. And I would love to see Bernie and Warren supporters, like, I bet if we surveyed them, many of them don't realize that Medicare for all means you give up your current insurance. I think a lot of them may think, oh, this is for the people who don't have insurance and they can get on Medicare too, which is the public option, as you know.
You can have private insurance for stuff that's not covered under the Medicare for all. When it's covered, bye-bye private insurance, because see, private insurance is the problem. You can't keep the problem around. Look, guys, like with anything else. If you're the problem, we need you out of there. We don't keep the problem around going, we'll just work around the problem. Oh, see here, you got some cancer in your gut, Tim Black. We're going to keep that. We're going to keep the cancer in your gut.
Yeah, I don't know if private insurance is the only problem. I think it contributes to the problem. I think the fact that people are living longer means that it's going to be more expensive for lifetime of care. I think that we probably overprescribe pharmaceuticals. I don't think private insurance, it's in their interests to do encourage that. I think that's the pharma companies and their marketing budgets and the media that take those ads. I think it's just sort of the opaqueness of the system and how there's no ability for the consumer to compare or make smart decisions. There's very little competition. And so those are things that aren't going to be solved by getting rid of private insurance. You clearly are not down with private insurance. I get that. But I don't know, man. I don't think this is a 1-point solution.
We just gonna work around it. Because, we wouldn't want to take the cancer out that's killing you. That is a symbolic metaphor. It's a metaphor for our insurance situation. The insurance companies are a cancer on America. We want to remove it. I don't know, maybe it'd be a good idea. Then we won't have these conversations. Because if you weren't promoting Medicare for all, I'd be fine.
Well, if you want us to change our website, maybe Yang will. I'd be fine with it. Call it Medicare choice or universal Medicare option. Whatever, dude. Medicare for all is like, well, fine. Like, I personally don't care. But I would argue that if Bernie keeps calling it Medicare for all, he should be really clear what it means to the 150 million people that have private insurance, that they have to lose it. And maybe he should call it mandatory Medicare or Medicare only. Hopefully, this sort of React format was interesting. Look, I want to close with this. I like this guy, Tim. I feel like, in fact, I'd love to get him on the show because I think we'd have a fun conversation. So, Tim, let me know if you're interested. And I respect the Bernie supporters. I freaking gave money to Bernie. I was like a Bernie supporter in the last cycle, and I'm pissed that we nominated Hillary because obviously she lost, and I think Bernie would have beat Trump. So I had nothing but love for Bernie, but I like Yang better. And I feel like he's the type of leader we need for the future. And hopefully this whole Medicare thing, like, in some ways it's a little bit of a academic exercise, because once we go to the general, even if we nominate Bernie or Warren, I think they're going to be forced to go with the public option as the most kind of palatable proposal for independents and Obama-Trump voters. But it's been a long video, so thank you for sticking around. If you guys like this kind of conversation, don't forget to subscribe. I upload at least once a week. Live streams, interviews, all that good stuff. Please like this video and comment. Let me know what you think. Would love to get your feedback. You guys keep it real.